okay, well, how do I want to show up? And then what do I really stand for? The unpacking of that for me in what I now call the halo method, which is what do you stand for? And then mapping out how you want to show up. And then coming up with 3 territories that define you through that process.
Welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe, where we pour positive back into your day, sharing stories from real people who have made it through some real struggles, but were able to restore their health, hope, and peace. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and as a certified coach, I'm here to guide you to be your best self-advocate, to help you restore your health, ignite your faith, and conquer those fears while you navigate your own healing journey so you can eventually exchange your dis-ease for durability. If you're looking for hope and encouragement to live a life you love, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and I'm so glad you're here today because I'm sitting down with my amazing friend, Radhika Lucas. Radhika is the founder of Content Halo and a powerful speaker, writer, and marketing expert with over 20 years of experience in the advertising world. But things haven't always been completely smooth sailing for her. After a few years of chasing success and battling burnout, Radhika began to ask some big questions about how to really show up authentically and how to help others do the same. This soul-searching journey of hers led her to create a method called the Halo Method, which is a transformational framework that empowers women to find their voice, own their story, and show up with confidence. With a deep background in advertising, behavioral change, and theater, Radhika combines her expertise to help individuals bridge that gap between what they stand for and how they want to show up in the world. Radhika has already helped hundreds of clients move from confusion to clarity, and she's sharing some of that wisdom today with us. We'll dive into topics like identity and the masks we wear and how to show up authentically and the power of knowing what you truly stand for. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation, so go ahead and grab your coffee or tea, settle in, and let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and I'm so excited today to have Radhika Lucas with us. Radhika, you're working with so many people worldwide, really, to help them find their true voice, to help them learn how to show up with confidence. And it's just such a needed area right now for so many people in the world. I just love this conversation, and I know our listeners are going to as well. So let me just welcome you to the Sunshine Cafe.
It's great to be here. And I'm so happy to be having this chat today with you because I know that when we first met, this was a topic that really resonated with you. And I know that there are lots of people who are wanting to hear about this. So yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We have you all the way over here from New Zealand today. So it's fun to be able to visit with you in New Zealand while I'm in the middle of the United States. So what a cool thing technology is. So I still can't quite wrap my head around how we do this, but it's pretty great.
It's fantastic. I know. And the fact that you're actually a whole day behind me as well. So we're literally time traveling.
Yes, yes. And I love to tease you that you're always so far ahead of me because literally you are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Radhika, I'd love to just jump into a little bit of your journey and what led you to some of the work that you're doing today and helping people find their true voice.
Mm. Yeah, so I think we all have and what I call an intersectionality of experiences. Now I'm going to dimensionalize that by just articulating what I mean by that. I think that as we're going through life, we have critical junctures at various different points in our life that are quite, let's just say, defining for us personally, right? So it could be that somebody goes through a really difficult period of ill health, just like I did. It could be that somebody is bullied at work, and so they end up losing a part of themselves through that process. It could be that perhaps they had a traumatic event in their life of some sort, and that took away from what they once had. So the whole concept of finding our voice, and I think the critical point that I think about when I think about why it is that I started really doing this was because of the patterns that I observed in myself and the patterns that I observed in other people. And one of the things that I'd learned really well from my speech and drama and elocution days, where I was, as a child, I was doing street performances, I was doing stage performances, I was doing theater, elocution, all of that. it made me realize that I was able to put on a mask, I guess, from what I needed to do. And I think it played into the fact that all of these experiences that I'd had that were many and varied just basically exacerbated the fact that it made me feel like I needed to wear a mask on account of either needing to please somebody else other than myself. And through the various different experiences, I felt at one point in my life where I actually didn't know what I stood for anymore because I'd given away so much of myself through many different points in time. And so when I first started up my business, I was noticing that there was a real issue with showing up for themselves. So showing up online, showing up in person, really articulating what people really stood for, not wanting to look silly or not wanting to come across as being someone who people might misconstrue or be judged, feeling insecure, all of those feelings. And then there was the other side, which was how do we actually articulate ourselves? So it comes back down to the intersectionality piece that I talked about earlier, which then I kind of put them down to four different parts. One is the intersectionality of our experiences. One is our professional experiences. So what we've done in the past. The other one is our lived experiences in the workplace. And then it is about our vision. So where we want to go, because quite often we're held back by the things that may have happened to us. And so then we assign meaning to what will happen in the future. But it really is about aligning ourselves with our future vision and then coming at it from a place of ease by finding everything that we have done and encapsulating that in one sentence that really helps draw people in and also defines at the heart of who people are. So that has been my mission. So ever since I started is to actually bring people across through my experiences into this new world, into this new way of doing things that may otherwise seem like you're always clutching at straws and on a hamster wheel. So that's a little bit about, my journey with finding my voice till now.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. I like the terminology of using a mask because it's just so visual. You can really relate with that. And I think at some level, masks have purpose. There's
Yeah.
positive reasons that we would wear a mask for when you're performing. I'm a musician as well, so I understand what that's like.
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to pretend you have no nervousness just to
Yeah.
get the show done. When
Yes.
really behind your mask, you're feeling really worried and concerned about all the things that you might be forgetting or whatever it might be happening. But there's also that line where the mask becomes, like you said, confusing. And I don't even know who I am anymore because I've worn this fake mask for so long that I'm not sure who I really am. How do you break down those barriers that exist for people so they can really let their real voice come through?
Mm. I think really for me, it was a point where after all of these critical junctures in my life, I came to a point where I really needed to show up as myself in my business because really people were attracted to who I was and coming from my own source of origin, I guess, what I stood for. It really came down to me mapping out how exactly I wanted to show up. What did I stand for? So it was literally mapping out these are the things that this is me. This is what I want to do and show up as. And that could be a variety of different things. So, for example, I know that I have a funny side to me. I have a goofy side to me. I have a side that likes to dress up and be glam, but equally I like to be in my pajamas and lounging on the couch. So it was literally about going, okay, well, how do I want to show up? What is it that I want to portray to the world so that people feel at ease when they're speaking to me? And then what do I really stand for? So through all of my life experiences, what have I gained through that process? What do I really stand for, the core of it? And that was the unpacking of that for me in what I now call the Halo method, which is really going into the heart of what you stand for and then mapping out how you want to show up and then coming up with three territories that define you through that process. So three simple territories, which actually, funnily enough, are very closely linked to our own really deepest, darkest why. So our deepest, darkest why or our value system. And for some of us, I think And I've heard this from people. Well, what is your greatest value system, for example? And for me, if I'm thinking about it for myself, I know that I operate in a work environment that fosters freedom. So a whole lot of freedom, right? But that isn't necessarily transferable to every scenario. So really for me, it really came down to me mapping out exactly how I wanted to show up and then what I stood for and coming up with 3 territories that could define at the heart of who I was in a way that I could articulate myself online, that I could speak up and present in person or online, and in a way that I didn't feel like I needed to change who I was constantly. I didn't feel like I needed to oscillate between, and I know that because I was speaking to somebody just a couple of weeks ago, and she said that she does a whole lot of things in her business, but there's really nothing tying it all together. And
Hmm.
I think this was a part for her that was like, oh, okay, what do I actually stand for? What is the one thing that I can hang my hat on and say, actually, this is what I stand for? So this has been the process for me, and this is how I help people through that process as well. So this is how people actually get to the heart of what they stand for.
Yeah. Oh, really, that's fantastic. Where did you get the name from, Halo?
I it actually just came to me.
Okay.
It came to me even
That's not
before.
an acronym or anything. It's just a name you gave it.
Yeah, the Halo method. Yeah. It was because I see things in concentric circles, and it's like an expansion. It's based on the premise of expansion, and that all of us have a halo already, right? And we all have a voice, but it's through the activation and amplification of our voice that our halo can expand. The energy source that we have around us can expand so that we can lean on our gifts. So I think that's where the halo thing came from. And actually it was just it came from my business name, which is Content Halo. And so of course I knew that because I think about the expansion in concentric circles that it looks like a halo. That's where the halo method came from. Yeah.
I love that. That's so good. Do you find that it ends up also creating a little bit of sanity in your life because you know which things to say yes to and which things to say no to? Does that show up?
It does. I mean, I think it helps you take a stand for what you believe in. So I think rather than the saying yes to certain opportunities and no to others, I feel like there's a time and place to do that. I think when people are starting out, they need to say more yeses to themselves because firstly, there's so many barriers to actually getting started in the first place that it might be one step too far for people to go, well, okay, well, how do I know what I say yes to and what I say no to? And I think that comes from a journey of experience. So you will find out very quickly who's in your corner and who's not through the process of just doing. And then that leads you to understanding, well, is this actually aligned with me? Is this where I feel like I can show up as my best self? And that's when the no's actually just end up transforming into yeses for yourself. So you end up saying more yeses to yourself. And by saying more yeses to yourself, the no's just automatically shrivel away and die. So I think initially there's a lot of focus on, is this opportunity right for me or is that opportunity right for me? And I think it's easier for people who have maybe done this for a really, really long time, like I'm talking decades, like maybe more than a decade, for them to say, well, actually, I now don't say yes to every opportunity. I just say yes to certain opportunities, whatever those might be. But I think it's really important to understand that if people are in that in-between phase and they're still creating opportunity for themselves, it's more important to say yes to yourself and then reflect back on that experience to see whether or not it was the right fit for you and what you learned from it and use that as insights and guiding lights for your next opportunity, whatever that might be. So
Let me
hopefully that answers that question.
Yes, that's great because it's the action that creates the clarity. And so sometimes you don't know if a particular area is going to be your thing unless you try it once. And you try it and you
Yeah.
say, well, I really didn't enjoy that. Let's not do that one again.
Mm.
Or maybe it really lit you up and you really enjoyed that opportunity. So
Yeah.
do you find ever in those people that you're working with that people have a certain persona, if you will, for one area of their specialty or their life and maybe a different persona for another? Does that ever show up for you?
Yeah, and I think that it shows up for us all, really. I mean, I think to your previous comment about masks and my previous comment about masks, I think we go through life wearing the different masks as a way to survive all of the various different perceived dangers out there. As human beings, we're highly social. Like we're looking for social cues, right? Like we want to be accepted and liked. We're geared from the time we're younger to really to please, right? To say thank you, to be grateful, to be of service to somebody else. So we do actually want to be liked. We want to be able to do good in this world. I guess if we didn't have any masks at all, we would go through life upsetting a lot of people along the way,
Yeah.
right? If we didn't have any navigation or any guiding light. But I think to answer your question, yes, I do feel like sometimes people put on a mask because they feel like it's the right thing to do rather than because they feel like they want to be more of themselves. Like they're not really allowing that part of themselves to come up because of the masks that they have had to wear along the way.
Mm.
And I'll give you a classic example of one of my experiences is when my children were younger. I was in a community that was quite different to who I am. I was always working throughout my children's much younger days. And I was in an environment where there were a lot of women who weren't working with much younger children. So I constantly felt like as though I was the odd one out in a community that was full of mothers who were actually at home rather than at work. And this to me felt like I was always trying to fit in to that environment where I didn't feel like I really belonged there because of the work that I was doing. And so I think there is that wearing of the mask that, if you've done it for long enough, it becomes a part of your behavior. And even if you were to use this example and actually literally extrapolate it to any other experience, whether it is in a work environment, whether it is dealing with, maybe say you were a caregiver, and so you were literally having to be the caregiver for somebody for so long that you actually lost the essence of who you are in the process. And that's also a mask that you've had to wear. That's a duty that you've had to carry, right? So it is then unbundling all of those to find out, okay, well, who's me in amongst all of this, right? So yes, so I think there is a time and place for wearing various different masks, as long as people come to the realization that actually leaning on themselves and their own true selves to nurture their own gifts, I guess, in a way, to bring out more of themselves. That's what's really needed. Yeah.
That is a great point. And as you're speaking about these things, Radhika, I'm just thinking about different people groups. I think about moms who have been really in the throes of those years of raising kids and trying to do all the things for everybody else. And then once the kids get a little bit older, you find yourself with more time. And then you're like, wow, who am I and what do I want to do in life? And I think there's a time there where they need to do this exercise that you're suggesting to excavate who are they and what are the things they stand for and how they want to show up. I think another group of people that kind of comes to the surface for me is almost that early teenager moving into young adulthood phase, where I call it the chameleon phase, because you're trying on all these different kinds of personalities and personas and masks, if you will, to see, oh, who am I? And you hang out with a particular group and you find out that's not those are my peeps. And you hang out with another particular group and you finally find a place where you fit in. And that kind of helps you get to know yourself a little better as you're excavating who you are. So I think this exercise that you are suggesting people go through with these different questions is super valuable for every one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a simple way in which to mine for your own authenticity is how I like to put it, is you can literally mine for your authenticity by taking a little bit of intentional work, putting in a little bit of intentional work, and then committing to that work once you have done it, because that is actually at the heart of who you are. And I feel personally for me that I have really got to serve my highest and best self, because my highest and best self is what somebody else deserves. And so that's where I come from, really.
Yeah. Well, you deserve it, and everybody who loves you and everyone around you deserves the real authentic you. So
Yeah.
it is definitely time well spent to just take a moment of pause to excavate those thoughts and those identifying characteristics of our what we're most aligned with. So I really like that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people really struggle with this, not just in knowing who we are and what masks we're wearing, but you had mentioned before about you have a couple bad experiences And just that self-preservation thing kicks in and we decide not to do whatever thing it was that we got a bad reaction. So I guess I have two questions for you. My first is tell us a little bit more about your pivot point, what really highlighted for you the importance of this. And then my second part of that question would be when you run into clients of yours who are really stuck in that had a bad experience down that road, how do you unpack that to help them become a little more comfortable with trying again?
Yes, yeah. So a big pivotal part for me, and I'll just get straight to the part where I really struggled was actually showing up on social media in a way that really highlighted everything that I was. I mean, it was for me initially, I was focused only on my topic or my subject matter, whatever it was that I was trying to do. So, one of the things that I help people do is get confident presenting on video because I've got a speech and drama backgrounds. But I was so focused on just that I actually forgot how to be myself on social media. I mean, we're not born with one of these in our hands, right? And I mean, I know that a lot of much younger people, the Gen Ys of this world, get it really quickly.
And just for those people who are just listening only, she was holding up a phone, an iPhone or a smartphone.
Exactly. And so I think it's 2006 was when Facebook first started, right? And so we're now nearly 20 years down the track from when social media was first a thing. But the proliferation of social media has really only started in the last 10 years or so, when people have really fully started using it in a really big way. And I think that brings about with it a huge amount of distraction, firstly, because we're constantly on. And so for me, what I felt like was I was constantly influenced by the things that I was seeing on social media. I felt like I had to be this person that I was seeing because it's natural. I think we're, again, as human beings, we're taking social cues from those around us. And if we are surrounded only by the people who are on social media and we're spending all our time there, then typically there is a saying that goes that you're more likely to be more like the five people that you're most surrounded with, right? Like that have the most influence on you. So there was a penny drop for me at the point where I was trying to be myself, but I didn't realize that I was actually wearing the masks that I'd learned from my theater days. So I was actually performing on social media without realizing that I actually had a visibility block. So someone can be highly visible and still have a visibility block, meaning that the way they show up isn't necessarily the way they want to show up. Not realizing that, because at that time, this was 3 or 4 years ago, when reels were a new thing and people were experimenting with reels. And now, of course, reels are everyone. For example, on Instagram, the LinkedIn has started that. So on social media, there was this sort of drive at that time to show up in a certain way. And of course, I was looking at my phone on how I needed to show up. So it was that feeling of I need to copy and be somebody else. And what that led to was when I did my first launch promoting my program, I just felt like this utter sense of complete loss because I'd spent all of this time, effort, and energy into being somebody that I was not. And that was when I came to realize that actually what I really needed was a way in which I could show up as myself, as my true self, and being able to articulate what it is that I stood for. So, what was the part that was missing in the way in which I was trying to project all of my experiences into the world in a helpful way that would help somebody else, but whilst also articulating how someone could work with me, right? So, that was a really big pivot point for me. And it actually was the making of the Halo method, because what I realized was that as women and in their 40s, 50s, or beyond, we needed to show up really that reflects all of who we are, but also what services we provide to the world. Needed a way in which I could do something simply and also that encapsulated all that I stood for very, very quickly. And so that I didn't have to be second guessing what I was posting and I could just go at it from a place of ease and flow. And so that was the biggest pivotal point for me and is the way in which I've helped other women who have worked with me go through this mapping process, because what I did was I was trying to copy and be somebody else, right? But what I really needed was to actually be myself.
Mm.
And so that's where that process started, which was actually helping other people be more of themselves online and offline, so that when people met you in person, and I've just had someone say that to me recently, who took one of my programs. She said, we met up for a coffee just down the road, and she said, the person whose posts I read online and the person who I meet in person are exactly one and the same thing. And that to me was one of the biggest compliments that I felt I could get after having been through many trials and errors of hiding, of shrinking rather than shining, and trying to show up in a way that felt as though there was a bit of tension in the way in which I wanted to show up. And so that was the birth of the Halo method. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
What a
helping
great
other people.
compliment to say that you're just authentically you, the way you are on social media and the way you are in person. That's a great compliment, I think.
Yeah, and I think most people want to be that, right? I think at the end of the day, we want to present ourselves in an aligned way, and so that we can show up as more of ourselves.
Yeah, agreed. So, how about those situations where you've really been attacked or shut down or told to shrink back into your box? And
Mhm.
how do you encourage your clients to try again and get past that
Mhm.
barrier?
Mhm. I think it's about understanding that not everyone's going to like what you do, and it comes with the territory of discomfort. I think that we are trained to people please right from the very beginning. And so social media actually feels like you're going out on the world stage in a way,
Yeah.
because it is for everyone to see, right? Like you are actually putting yourself out there for everyone to see and for people to make judgments and comments about you. And that actually takes away from what we're at the core of, like where we're trained for people to like us. And so having this projection of how we need to be. And so what I say to people is that, and what I say to myself in these instances, because it's a continual journey. It's not something that you just get up one day and you go, that's it. I've reached the end of the marathon. I've won the race. Well, you might do at some stage, but it takes a long time to actually get to that point. And I know anecdotally from people who have been doing it for years and years and years that they too feel that fear, but they do it anyway. That, as the cliche goes, right? So for me, it has looked like in two forms. One is it looks a little like microaggressions from people. There, it might be a snide comment, it might be a look, or it might be something that someone says that erodes from your sense of self, that makes you second guess yourself. And for all the times that that has happened, I just have to take an approach of they don't understand me well yet, or they don't know me well yet, right? And so they're coming at it from a place of their own reality, and coming to an understanding that unless they get to know me, they're not going to like me, and they're not going to like me if I don't show up as more of who I am. And I'm not going to be able to please everyone, regardless of whether I show up as my full self or not. There's always going to be people who will be drawn to me, and then there'll be other people who are not. And this is the case if I show up in person, and if I show up online, it's going to be one and the same thing.
Mm.
And so I think the only thing about social media in particular is that it's so public and it's there for everyone to see, that it can feel like as though you're being publicly shamed for your thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the hardest parts, is having to go through that journey, knowing what you stand for. Because are you ready to die on a hill for this cause, right? Like, how important is it to you, right? And I think gauging whether the possibility of the vision or what you stand for outweighs the fear that you feel. Once someone gets to that point, then it's a point of no return, and you'll keep building and you'll keep expanding. And I think the other thing is bringing people along who are on that journey with you, who support you and will encourage you, is just as important, in realizing that there'll always be people who don't always want the best for you, and not for any other reason, but they might be coming at it from a place that's unfamiliar to you, or that they don't understand what it is that you're all about. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think well, first of all, social media is one of those where people are are just so much more likely to be really mean than they would be
Mm,
to your face. So that's one thing.
yeah.
The other thing that I think is so crazy about it is you put something out there and people immediately extrapolate and they say, "Oh, if this person is this way, then they must believe all these other things." And I think as a
Mm,
society, we've started labeling and bucketing people. Just because they're doing one thing means they must have all these other values, or just because they're doing another thing means they must believe all these other things. And that's not always the case, but that I think does build the fear for showing up in front of social media is you don't want people to associate you with things that aren't you. And sometimes people don't take the time to get to know you.
no. Yeah.
No, I really like what you said about the fact that we have to acknowledge that not everybody's going to like us. And as a matter of fact, as a musician, that's one of those phrases that actually got me to go on stage. Somebody had said to me, Lisa, you're going to go in front of an audience and half the room's going to like you and half the room isn't for the same reason.
Mm,
And I think about that all the time still when I go on stage. There's enough people out there, and there's certainly enough people who aren't going to like us, but there are
mm.
also a whole bunch of people who are going to like us. But we just have to feel confident that we're being true to ourselves. And however somebody takes it or leaves it, at least I can go to bed at night feeling really good that I'm being true to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it does take a little bit of building up that muscle. I think it's easier when you've been in some kind of a performance role to almost have had that practice in some way,
Yeah.
but it's a lot harder for people who have not had that experience. And so the world stage in whatever form, whether it is in person or whether it's online, articulating what you stand for does feel very exposing because of that reason. And there are different levels that we have to get through where we're actually able and comfortable to hold and own our own voice.
Sure. Well, summarize for us what the Halo process is. Then you gave us a couple questions already, but what are some of the things you take your clients through?
So I go through 3 phases for people. One of them is how to find your voice. The second is how to activate your voice. And the third one is how to amplify your voice. Now, the finding your voice phase uses the Halo method. So it is actually about uncovering what you stand for and how you want to show up so you can articulate from a place of ease.
Mhm.
The amplifying your voice part actually takes on blending elements of behavior change along with performance skills. So I have a process that I take people through, which is once they've identified what they stand for and what their true voice is, it's then putting into action all of the things that they stand for in terms of their true voice. So it could be about identifying how is it that they want to project out into the world. This could be how they speak about their story. This could be what their story is. So, say, for example, if you're a home organizer and you are wanting to stand out from other home organizers, well, what is your story that actually links up the reasons why you are a home organizer? Just as an example. Another could be if you're a lawyer and you actually want to advocate for the rights of the elderly. You want to be able to articulate why is it that someone should choose you over somebody else as you are building your practice. It is about articulating what those territories are. What do you stand for? And then how can you show up in a way that lets people know what it is that, you're all about and how you can help them in a way that's actually succinct. So there is that one aspect of it, which is activating. It's about going through behavior change exercises, which actually expose people to an element of fear. So based on the principles of what's called flooding, so you are exposed to the fear that you actually have in a safe setting.
Mm.
And so that you can actually start to build the neural pathways in your brain of disconnecting the fear with possibility through using your own voice. And then the third is the skill of writing. So how do you write about all that you do in a way that can bring people into your ecosystem and want to work with you really in a way that feels very aligned, that doesn't take away from the essence of who you are. And then the last part is the amplification. So that's when you decide, okay, well, what kind of visibility strategy is right for me based on whether I'm an introvert, whether I've got a speaking voice that pulls in crowds, whether I would much rather be behind the scenes and work in a quieter setting that conserves and preserves my energy, whether I want to work with other businesses, and how is it that I'm going to be positioning myself so that other people can get to understand what I stand for through having gone through the first couple of phases. So it's actually about the strategy work that comes in when it comes to amplifying your voice into a setting that then has that nice flow because you've done the work starting with the right foundations. So that's a little bit about the Halo method in its essence.
Oh, it sounds like it'd be really a great exercise to do like on a, like every 10 years, just load it up
Yeah,
again.
brush up on.
Exactly. So true. You mentioned two things that I wanted to talk about. First of all, I want to just mention you're talking about how there's introverts, there's extroverts, and I just want to appeal to everybody listening. We all have different gifts and we all need the different gifts. So, Radhika, when
Mm,
you were talking about how we have a tendency to want to be like the person we're watching and like that person online who's, by the way, also wearing a mask and
yeah,
probably isn't completely authentic in that moment. But there's room for all of us to have a role, and we need all of those different personalities to come together. We need the extroverts, we need the introverts, we need the soft voices, we need the loud
yeah.
voices. So it's really
Mhm.
okay to just be you and to just give yourself permission to be unique and let your own unique voice be heard. So that's one thing I think is fairly great. The other thing you mentioned, you just touched in on neuroplasticity, and it's one of the topics that I love diving into, in particular
Mhm.
because that feeling we have when we're learning something new, when you first got on your bicycle or you tried to balance on a ripstick or a hoverboard or whatever it may be, that really uncomfortable, frustrating feeling that a lot of people associate with public speaking, whatever, that is actually the physical expression of our brains and the neuroplasticity growing extra neural connections. So if we
Yeah.
can understand that it's really just our neural pathways developing in that moment, we can say, okay, I don't have to be worried about that. I'm safe. This is my brain
Mhm.
learning something new. And I think that kind of takes some of the pressure off.
Absolutely. I think what I've found is that people who have already had quite a successful professional career in some instances, when they go into, say, presenting themselves online or really using their voice for the first time in different settings, I think there's a certain pressure that comes with the success that they've already had in a prior profession that they might have had. And so going into something that's new brings up feelings of imposter syndrome, which kind of almost takes away the essence of the things that they're already good at. And so I think what it creates is that we're moving into a new dimension, which is new, and where you feel like you could be exposed for not sounding like yourself because of that fear factor that comes in. But I think quite often people underestimate the value that they already have had from their professional experiences, from their lived experiences, that they kind of almost need to shift the focus on an empathetic angle of how they're going to be helping somebody else through their voice, through their mission, through what they stand for. And I think even changing that angle slightly can really help when people are going through that. So I think, there is this neuroplasticity. It's a bit of a tongue twister that comes with taking on new things. But the realization that it's actually only going to be a matter of time before you've done something enough number of times into this new dimension that you might find yourself in. And then very soon the experiences that you have had and that your unique value that you bring to the table will then be assimilated in this new person or this new persona that's forming with this new skill set that they've now formed. So almost sort of like an upgrade of themselves in a way with not only the skills that they've had, but now these new skills where they're able to actually leverage different forms of communication to put themselves out there in a way that feels very aligned because they're being more of themselves through leaning on what's really intrinsically theirs to have anyway.
It's really great, Radhika. I love the topic. I love what you're doing for people out there and really helping to coach them through being their authentic self. I think that's just a fantastic service you're doing. So I'm just really glad that you have this offering that you're putting out there.
No, happy to help spread the word about it.
Yeah. Well, in that light, how could people reach you and where can they find you?
Yeah, so they can go and visit either my website if they're curious to know a little bit more about what it is that I do. So that's at contenthalo.com, and it'll be in the show notes, no doubt. But another thing that I want to leave people with is that we've explored quite a few territories so far. We've talked about the Halo method. We've talked about how people can actually uncover more of who they are, what they stand for. And I have a guide that's going to help people understand the 20 unexpected ways that finding their true voice will help them. And they can go and find this guide at contenthalo.com/magnetic. Now, this guide will take them through a visioning exercise. So people can go in and actually identify the top 3 to 5 things that they want from that list. So there are 20 unexpected ways that finding their true voice can help them. And it is for people to identify the top 3 things that they can focus on. That's the most pressing for them, and then work on those top 3 things by using the visioning exercise. It's almost like the prequel to finding your true voice, and it'll help set the scene for the vision that they have for themselves. So if they want to attract more opportunities and stop chasing, then they need to become magnetic. And for that, they need to go to contenthalo.com/magnetic.
That's fantastic. That's perfect. And we will definitely put that in the show notes as well. Well,
Yeah.
my sweet friend, before we wrap up, Radhika, is there anything else that you would like to encourage people with? Any other final words that you would like to just mention to our audience before we wrap up?
I think the only lasting thing that I will leave people with is to say that the work of finding your true voice and finding what you really stand for can feel quite daunting, but there is a huge amount of freedom that comes once you have found it. And it doesn't need to be hard, it can be very easy. But once you make the commitment to actually doing and standing up for what you stand for, that is where the magic actually happens. And I would encourage everyone to stop doubting and stop shrinking and start shining.
I love that. Fantastic. Radhika, thank you so much for being with us. So appreciate your time and your wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa.
I have 9 powerful takeaways for you today. Number 1, authenticity requires intention. Many people wear masks to please others or to fit into external expectations, especially online. Radhika encourages us all to take some good time to do some intentional reflection, to uncover who we really are at the core and how we want to show up. She has a beautiful guide to help you through this so you can show up authentically you. Number 2, the Halo method. Radhika introduces us to her process called the Halo method, which explores what you stand for, how you want to show up, and identifies 3 territories or pillars that really define you and what you're all about, helping you get aligned with who you really are and what you want to become. Number 3, the 3-part journey to finding your voice. Radhika walked us through the 3-part journey to find your voice, which includes 1, find your voice, uncover your story, values, and experiences. Number 2, activate your voice. Begin showing up with clarity and consistency. And then number 3, amplify your voice. Learn to use various platforms, especially video and social media, to reach your audience effectively. Number 4, the intersectionality of experience really matters. Radhika maps identity through intersecting elements, personal experiences, professional background, and future vision. Together, these help to shape a meaningful narrative of who you are and who you want to become. Number 5, the power of saying yes. Early on in your career and life experience, many people need to say more yeses to themselves, especially in the face of fear or to overcome that helpful but not so helpful illness of perfectionism. Clarity and confidence come by taking action, my friends, so don't wait until you feel ready, because guess what? The truth is, you may never feel ready. So give yourself permission to make mistakes and just dive in. Number 6, fear versus possibility. Using behavior change techniques like flooding, Radhika helps her clients face their fears and rewire those belief patterns to associate showing up with possibility instead of equating showing up with fear. Number 7, your highest self is what others really deserve. Showing up as your full self is not selfish. It's a service to others. In this crazy world, my friends, there's only one you, and the world is going to be much better off when they get to meet you. You will become magnetic when you're aligned with your message and your purpose. Number 8, not everyone will like you, and that's okay. Radhika reminds us that alignment does not mean universal approval. Some people will not understand or resonate with who you are, and that's okay. If you take a moment to think about it, you don't align well with everyone you meet either. And so we can't expect others to always align with us. Just let go of those people and gracefully move on to the ones who really do need and want to be in your world. And finally, number 9, consistency builds confidence. Even seasoned professionals will struggle with stepping into new arenas, even online arenas like social media. But like any skill, your voice and presence will grow stronger, more confident, and more compelling with practice. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please, if you would, share this episode because you never know what kind of encouragement might be in this conversation that someone else really needs to hear. So pass it along, share it, like it, and subscribe. Let's work together to flood the world with more encouragement. Until next time, my friends, stay encouraged, be inspired, and we'll see you next time right back here at the Sunshine Cafe.